Welcome to the lead management overview for recruitment services. What's important to know from the introduction that I previously provided is that there are four key phases of recruitment services that we must adhere to when working through our new pipeline. The first phase is our lead management phase. These are all the new inquiries that come through the system from our marketing efforts, and these are the opportunities that we must reach out to as a priority to determine whether they are interested in moving forward through the program or are just requesting information or finding out something about them particularly that is going to engage them to allow them to be prospective students for our particular programs. And so as you can see here, there are several statuses within each phase, and once again in the lead management phase we have one new, the corresponding definition, the call communication plan, the number of calls, and the move that we make to the status once we have attempted to make the particular call. So let's run by this example. We have a new inquiry that comes in through our marketing efforts, a landing page or some other channel for the first time. And our first order of business is to reach out to this new lead as soon as we come in the morning. After one call, we're going to leave a voicemail, send a corresponding email with our contact information in case we're not successfully able to get a hold of them on an initial call. Once we have reached out to them in that first initial call, we're going to move that status into an attempting status. Now, we will go through all the particulars about lead management in the LoRa CRM system next week. But this week I wanted to just provide an overview of exactly what you can expect as you get familiar with the terminology and definitions of a stage and status of an inquiry. Once again, first phase, the lead management phase, we are in the process of trying to reach them for the first time, trying to contact them via phone or email. And we're going to use our communication plan, which is our call plan here, to stay within compliance as far as the minimum number of calls that we must make to any inquiry before we can move them out of this first phase. Once we've done our due diligence with our first phase, the second phase is called the sales pipeline management phase. This pipeline management phase is catered to those students that we've successfully been able to contact, and they have expressed a moderate to high level of interest into our various programs. The status as designated by the lead management plan is called in Sales A or in Sales B. The in Sales A is defined accordingly, and this prospect has a very strong interest in the program and has a certain action plan to apply. Of course, we need to select the proper term, but in communicating with this prospective student, the call plan gives us an identification of the minimum number of calls that we should make every 7 days or every week. The number of calls that we should reach out to the student in case we're not successful doing the first follow-up call, and what should happen to that call if we're not successful within that time frame, and where we should move that particular inquiry. In this example, we have an individual who has expressed a high level of interest in the program. They want to apply for the upcoming term. We set a follow-up appointment for next week. We reach out to that person next week as designed on our calendar, but we're unsuccessful in reaching them on that particular day. We're going to continue to reach out to them 2 to 4 additional times, hopefully with success. But in the case that if we're not successful in reaching out to them via phone or email, we're going to move that lead from the in Sales A category down to the in Sales B status. The corresponding status for in Sales B is such: this lead is qualified, but instead of having a high level of interest, they now have a moderate level of interest. Maybe they're still shopping other programs. It's up to us to find out, obviously. Once again, the communication plan expectation, the number of calls that we should make, and if we're unsuccessful in reaching them in that particular status, where we should move that particular inquiry once we've made the minimum expectation of calls. Once we successfully manage our sales pipeline phase, and we have students who have actually applied, then we're going to work in our active pipeline management phase, which is phase 3 of our lead management plan. In this phase, we're dealing with students who have actually applied to the program or in the process of getting their documents together, who have actually paid their application fee if one is required, and we're working diligently with these prospective students to get them to ultimately get accepted into the program and ready to start. Now, in the application and progress stage, once again, to use as an example, we are working with the student to gain all of their tangible documents to prepare them for a final completed file to be submitted to the academic partner. In the case when we have a student who has applied but has not submitted their application fee, once again, the communication plan identifies the minimum number of calls we should make once a week and the maximum number of calls that we should make in this particular status, in this case 2 to 4. If for some reason we're not successful in reaching out to this student as a follow-up, then we'll remove that student according to the status lead management plan. In the case where the student has submitted all their documents as well as submitted their application fee, as you can see here, this is considered an application received. The corresponding definition, the minimum number of calls that should be made every week, the maximum number of calls that should be made in this particular status before we move that inquiry into the corresponding status. So once again, the key to note is that for every stage, there is a corresponding status, which is based on the dialogue that you have or do not have with that prospective student. The definition, the communication plan as far as the minimum number of calls that are expected for that particular status, and the corresponding maximum number of calls that should be placed in that particular status before the lead is moved into its corresponding place. The key element to remember with all of this is the fact that we want to practice strong data integrity. And if you're following the lead management plan, you'll be able to successfully have a database that we can rely upon to do our proper forecasting and budgeting. The final phase of recruitment service as far as the lead management plan is the enrollment management phase. Now this is a great place to be simply because we know that at this phase the student has been accepted into the program, and now it's up to us to make sure that we do everything we can to ensure a successful transition to our student support team, as well as to make sure that we have everything available to the student and removed every obstacle from the student that would prevent them from actually starting their program. So as you can see here, let's use this example as 5 accepted, which is the status of the enrollment management, the first status of the enrollment management phase. The corresponding definition, applicant has been accepted by academic partner and will be issued a letter of acceptance by the academic partner. The number of calls that we should be making to this prospective student depending on when registration opens. And the number of calls are pending, once again, depending on the timing of the number of when registration opens. Now, a best practice that I have seen over the years is the fact that we want to keep the student engaged somehow, especially during this crucial time in their acceptance into the program. They're very excited, and we want to somehow be able to maintain that level of excitement in order to keep the student engaged and ready to start their program. One of the biggest mistakes that we make sometimes is that we have a student accepted and we forget about them. And so according to the communication plan, it's very important that we reach out to them bi-weekly until 4 weeks from registration opening. Then weekly calls to make sure that we are giving them every opportunity to share with us any changes that they may have in their life, any life changes, any occurrences that may have happened. Maybe it's a job change, maybe it's a family situation, maybe it's a health or medical issue. But we need to make sure that we're staying alert and informed about everything that's happening with our prospective students. So that's why the enrollment management phase is such a critical time in a student's life cycle. So once again, this is just a general overview of the lead management plan, identifying the 4 phases of recruitment services that we'll be working through. Phase 1, lead management, and the corresponding statuses that report to that. Phase 2, sales pipeline management, and the corresponding statuses that are included in that category. Phase 3, the active pipeline management, and the corresponding statuses that are associated with that phase. And finally, the enrollment management phase and the corresponding statuses that are tied to that particular phase. We will go into more detail about lead management and how it all corresponds and what it looks like in the actual CRM system, which is where we house all of our opportunities for working with prospective students. Thank you for listening.